Hello everyone, welcome to Between the Lines. In today's video, we're going to discuss the poem Nutting by William Wordsworth. So before we begin, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how this series of lectures will be structured, right? So in this video, the one you're watching right now, we're going to discuss a little bit about the author, William Wordsworth, and then we'll go on to discuss some aspects of the poem. Like I'll try to give you a sort of an outline or a summary of the poem, so that when we get to a line by line analysis of the poem in the next video, you'll already have a sort of understanding of the poem and you'll know what to expect, right? So that's how this is going to be structured. So this will just be sort of the background, and in the next video we'll get into sort of the line by line analysis. Okay, so now we can start talking about the author, William Wordsworth. Everyone knows that Wordsworth is associated with, like, he's one of the founding members of the Romantic movement, which was a literary movement that started in late 18th century and went on till the start of the Victorian period, right? So I'm not going to get into the details of what romanticism is, or like the nitty-gritty specifics of it. If you're interested in that, you can let me know in the comments and I can make a separate video on this. But for the sake of time, you just have to know that Wordsworth was a romantic poet, and some of his famous works are lyrical ballads, which he wrote with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and that came out in 1798. If you look at the presentation right here, yeah, so this is Lyrical Ballads, which was a collection of poems written by Wordsworth himself and S.T. Coleridge, who was his friend. And the other famous work is The Prelude, which is also sort of a collection of poems, but it is structured in a way that you sort of read it like you read Paradise Lost. It is what they call an autobiographical epic, right? So it's about Wordsworth's own development as a poet. So that's The Prelude. Moving on, one last thing to note is that Wordsworth was a poet laureate, or I should rather say the poet laureate of the British Empire from 1843 until his death in 1850. And he was preceded by Robert Southey and succeeded by Alfred Lord Tennyson. These are just some basic things that you ought to know about Wordsworth. If you're writing an essay or anything like that, you would want to mention some of his important works, and that he was the poet laureate and so on and so forth. Now we can start discussing the poem itself. The poem has 56 lines and it is written in blank verse. And if you're not aware, blank verse just means that there are no end rhymes. So it's not like a sonnet where you have rhyming words at the end of each line, I mean. And it is predominantly written in iambic pentameter. That's what it means when they say it's blank verse. Once again, if you're not sure what iambic pentameter means, just drop a comment and I can make a different video on that. So moving on, the poem was written in 1798, when in the year in which the Lyrical Ballads, or I should rather just say Lyrical Ballads, was published, right? And this was written when Wordsworth was in Germany with his sister. Yeah, and the other interesting thing is that Wordsworth originally thought he would include this poem into like the larger collection that he was making called The Prelude, but he ended up not doing that. So he thought that this poem Nutting kind of I should say it kind of is complete in itself, right? It doesn't need to be part of a larger narrative like The Prelude, right? So ultimately we have Nutting as its own separate poem, right? And this poem is likely set in the Lake District. Once again, if you're not sure what that is, you can just look it up. The Lake District is a region of England where Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and even Southey, I think, all three of these great romantic poets lived. and it's known for its serenity, its beauty, like the natural landscapes and so on and so forth. So that's why it's important, because nature and the appreciation of nature is such a huge part of Wordsworth's poetry, and all romantic poetry for that matter. And it's important that we sort of understand where these landscapes are, right? So that's why I've included this point right here. Moving on, we just have to discuss the outline of the poem now, and we can end the video, right? It's quite a short video. So this is what happens in the poem, right? There is a young boy who leaves his cottage. He has a bag with him, and he goes into the forest. And he does this in order to go and collect hazelnuts. So if you don't know what those are, I've included like a little picture here. But this is what happens in the poem, right? So this boy, he has a bag with him. He's going into the forest and trying to collect nuts, hazelnuts. And initially he's kind of roaming around trying to find the right spot, right? And he's going deep into the forest, and he finally stumbles across a clearing, like a bower, and it's full of these hazelnut trees, and he's kind of immersed in the serenity, the beauty, and he's just taking in the view, right? And he sits down there, and then after some time he lies down there, and he's just appreciating the beauty of all of these trees. And then for some reason that the poet does not really convey to the reader, that boy, he suddenly has an urge to sort of damage the trees, right? So he stands up very quickly and he sort of attacks the trees, and he breaks their branches and so on and so forth. And then again, he sort of has this moment of realization, or sort of a moment of regret, where he finally regrets what he's done to those beautiful trees, right? So when the poem ends, you find that the poet is talking to his sister, and he's telling her to be gentle with nature. And so that is sort of the narrative of the poem. That's what happens in the poem. And I'm only trying to convey this beforehand, before we start reading the actual poem, so that when we get to the poem, you'll have a clear sense of what things mean. So yeah, I'll try and end the video here, and I hope you'll be watching the next one, where we'll do a sort of line by line analysis of the poem. So yeah, see ya.